cyber risk is an evolving threat impacting not only insurers but insureds. During our conversation with on-site attendees here at the 2025 Financial Regulators Program, you explored the topic of cyber risk, and you did so through the solvency lens. Scott, is it fair to describe cyber risk as a multifaceted challenge to insurance companies, and does it present perhaps both underwriting concerns along with operational threats? We'd appreciate your thoughts on that.
It certainly does. It's an all the above, unfortunately, and that's a lot to track for insurance companies. From the technological side as well as the regulatory side, we're seeing lots and lots of changes that are driving shifts in this threat landscape. So just like we've seen in other sectors, ransomware attacks continue to proliferate. That's hitting some insurance companies particularly hard. We've seen some record payouts, including $40 million plus now in single attacks that definitely risk solvency. But we've also seen continuing challenges on the underwriting landscape itself. What does reasonable cybersecurity look like? What direction should insurance companies be pushing their clients to make sure that we have a kind of base level of protection that raises all boats? When we get regulators, insurance companies, and ideally even academia all pushing in the same direction with kind of verified, empirically backed findings around these security controls, I think that's that powerful triangulation that can really move markets and push us in a much better position.
I'm curious, Scott, do you see a role for AI here? Does it play a big role in terms of not only cyber threat detection, but perhaps also risk assessment? What are we seeing there? And is there some promise?
There's certainly promise. Of course, where there's promise, there's also peril. But we've seen, lots of insurance companies, big and small, deploying AI tools already. From the statistics I'm most familiar with, around 40% of insurance companies have already deployed large language models of their own, and another 30% or so are in development over the next year. So we're seeing these deployed at scale. They're being used for a whole variety of purposes. So that can be looking at new markets, new sectors to try to get a better sense for what the risk and premiums should look like. It can also be looking at encouraging, maybe even requiring some of their clients to use some of these tools as part of a proactive cybersecurity posture to kind of spot threats, as well as, depending on the workforce they have inside, maybe plug some gaps, because these tools are getting pretty advanced pretty quickly, so they can do some of the roles that were historically resigned for other, in-person professions. So that's also part of the challenge here, right, is figuring out what mix do we really want at these organizations. Insurance companies as well have to use and be mindful of AI tools, because the bad guys are also doubling down on this in a big way. So whether it's deep fakes or the voice phishing stuff, we've seen a real proliferation in AI techniques that are being deployed really at scale to target big companies. Healthcare, of course, but financial and insurance companies are usually right there in terms of the number 2 most attacked sector. And as AI increasingly basically automates cyber risks, we're just going to see that, I think, get to another scale. And that's going to be a real challenge to track in real time.
Thank you, Scott. Let's talk a bit about cyber hygiene. Obviously, AI may be a component of cyber hygiene, but there are no doubt other components there. Curious as to your views in terms of the relative importance of cyber hygiene. Do we see that becoming perhaps more important? And what does that look like as we look down the road a bit here?
I think so. And, we haven't done a great job at cyber hygiene training over the last couple decades. It started in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks. We had the birth of Cybersecurity Awareness Month every October, and we were supposed to be doubling down on, hey, let's not do the basics. Let's not click on the links we're not supposed to. Let's update our software. Let's have backups of our data. It's been more than 20 years, and a lot of us still don't do some of the basics. And I think in part that's because, at least here in the US, we haven't done a particularly good job of defining what the most basic threshold should be. What's the equivalent of washing your hands every day in cyberspace, right? Other countries like Australia, they've articulated something called the Essential 8. There's 8 security controls that they require across the board, and that drives a lot of their messaging. Similarly in Singapore, right? It's a really robust operation. And we've seen, interest in that in the States, but I don't think it's really percolated down to the level that we would like to see day in, day out. Now, users cannot handle this problem on their own. We're never going to get to 100% cyber hygiene. We're never going to get to a point at which all systems are updated all the time. Nobody's clicking on stuff that they shouldn't. AI can help with that because it can be useful, one, in spotting where those gaps are in systems. It's getting increasingly good at spotting, bugs in code, at spotting potential malware that could be developed into exploits. Again, that's both the good and bad side of that, though, because the bad guys can also use those same tools to find those new backdoors. But this can also be useful because it can develop really interactive, interesting training exercises that, frankly, a lot of insurance companies should be doing. So that could be more penetration testing. It could be more basically insider threats. So making it look like a message or a video is coming from so-and-so at a company and seeing how many folks, click on it or get on a Zoom call, initiate a wire transfer, insure maybe somebody that they shouldn't. Who knows? We've unfortunately seen this technology used kind of all across the board in that regard. So it can be a fun way for security teams and for leadership at these companies to also develop really innovative, interesting, and even gamified training programs to really showcase the breadth of these challenges, right? It's not just the link that you get anymore. It really runs the gambit. And I think people aren't used to picking up the phone, having it sound like their boss, or even getting on a Zoom call. And really, that really looks like the CFO of the company there. And we got to think twice, both from leadership at insurance companies as well as, frankly, the client base.
I'm curious, Scott, your thoughts in terms of the importance of the insurance ecosystem, insurers, insureds, public policymakers, the academy, coming together to grapple with some of the challenges we face in terms of the cyber threat landscape.
I think that could really move mountains, frankly, in this regard. So yeah, to your point, I think it's incredibly important that we get that triangulation happening between the public and private sectors and academia, really drilling down on the messaging here and the science that we have so far, because the regime effectiveness isn't, frankly, where we like it. As you know, there's nothing like a cyber statistics bureau at the federal level. So that's going to be really important and help get us ahead of some of these new wave of attacks that we've been seeing, including against insurance companies, and lots of supply chain attacks being among them.
Professor Shackelford, thank you for being with us here at the 2025 Financial Regulators Education Foundation program, produced in collaboration with the good folks here at the Cady School of Insurance at Illinois State and all of us at the Institute's Griffith Foundation, and for visiting with me today. We appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Frank. Thanks so much for having me.